Good morning, and welcome to our Resilience for the Future panel discussion. My name is Carolyn Casson, and I am the President and CEO of Michigan Women Forward, Michigan's nonprofit community development organization, whose mission is to expand economic opportunity for women, empower the next generation of young women, and celebrate and honor the accomplishments of all women. Today, we're broadcasting live from downtown Lansing, and we have an informative and hopefully inspiring one-hour program planned for you. The goal of today's events is to reflect upon the unrelenting resilience of Michigan's entrepreneurs over the last 18 months, and to start an important conversation about what's next for Michigan women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of color in the post-COVID economy. And isn't that a great phrase, the post-COVID economy? MWF is proud to sponsor today's event with Independent Bank, MSU Federal Credit Union, and AARP. The Independent Bank has been a longtime partner in our network, and they have supported women since 2014 with MWF by sponsoring our Women Up and Learn summits, our pitch competitions, our Resilience Fund last year during COVID, and now this breakfast. Although our focus is always leveling the playing field for women, we know that there are many men out there who champion our work. And the president of Independent Bank, Brad Kessel, is one of them. Although he could not be with us today, we want to let him know how much we appreciate him and how much we thank him. But we're thrilled to have Cheryl Bartholic, Senior Vice President of Independent Bank, here to kick off today's program. Cheryl?
Good morning. Independent Bank is proud to be the title sponsor of the Resilience for the Future breakfast. We have been involved with moving women forward for the last 7 years as a donor and a supporter. In addition, our employees have provided their time and expertise to many of the MWF seminars, the Microloan Committee, and one of our employees, Bridget Murphy, sits on the MWF board. Two of our employees who have volunteered for MWF events are here with me today, Sue Folk and Chelsea Carpenter. Independent Bank was recently recognized by 50/50 Women on Boards as a 3+ company for having 3 or more women on its corporate board of directors. 50/50 Women on Boards is an advocacy campaign driving the movement toward gender balance and diversity on corporate boards. We are a regional community bank headquartered in Michigan. We believe in supporting women and minority-owned businesses throughout the state. Our partnership with MWF made sense for us, as Independent Bank and MWF have a shared commitment to seeing small business owners succeed and achieve economic equity, and we both are committed to making communities stronger. MWF did a wonderful job in May of 2020, creating and implementing the Michigan Entrepreneur Resilience Fund that provided recovery grants and microloans to small businesses. Independent Bank, along with many other companies, made a donation to this fund. With the help of the MEDC, MWF quickly raised $1.5 million and were issuing loans and grants just a few months after the pandemic shut down many businesses. MWF and the MEDC are to be commended, as they acted a lot quicker than a lot of us bankers who stumbled a little bit trying to get the Paycheck Protection Plan up and other stimulus programs up and running. The MWF's Resilience Fund helped many Michigan small business owners stay in business during those challenging economic times. This morning, we are here to honor those businesses and celebrate your resiliency. We are now going to meet by video 3 West Michigan entrepreneurs who received Resilience Fund grants. Meet Ava Marie, Azetta, and Christine.
So we are Gugenius, and we cartoon everything.
I'm 4th generation seamstress. We go back to my great grandmother.
Zeal is an all-in-one aerial fitness studio.
When the pandemic hit, all of the classes stopped.
Obviously, we had to shut our doors.
I had a lease in and I wasn't able to keep the space.
I had reached that point where I was like, I'm going to apply for every single grant possible.
So I did end up applying for both the loan and the grant through the Resilience Fund.
And then when I received the grant, my husband and I cried because it just helps for pay things, those overhead costs like rent when we couldn't be open.
And we used that to sort of revamp our studio space so that we could actually do online classes.
And it helped me get the space. It helped me actually be able to move in. I appreciate them contacting you to see, well, how are you doing?
There's been a check-in process afterwards. Say, okay, we just finished this quarter. How are things going? What's your growth like?
Is there any other way we can help you? And I was so touched by that.
So I was able to do all of that with it and keep things going.
Understanding numbers to drive business decisions has been a huge shift. And again, connecting with people who can help walk you through that with other local business women. Those connections have been invaluable.
If you support a small business, women-owned business, minority-owned business, you're actually helping to feed a family.
The investment that Michigan Women Forward has put into our business and into me has really helped me take ownership of our business in a new way. And now I'm really ready to say I am a businesswoman.
Good morning. My name is Alexis Dishman, and I am the Chief Lending Officer with the Michigan Women Forward. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Latasha Peoples, the Grant Manager for Entrepreneurship and Innovation for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, or also known as MEDC. Together, we will reflect on the last 16 months since COVID-19 hit. Thank you for being here with us, Latasha.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, since I joined Michigan Women Forward, after the partnership between MEDC and MWF had initially formed, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit, and those in the audience, about how MWF joined forces with MEDC to create the Michigan Entrepreneur Resilience Fund.
Thank you. So I first want to start out by just notating that I had the pleasure and privilege of attending one of your Women Up in pitch competitions in Jackson a few years back. And after that experience, I enlisted my colleague, Maggie McCammon, who also is part of our entrepreneurship team at the MEDC, and we began to support you guys in your events and the things that you were doing for women and entrepreneurs. So that allowed us to establish a cadence and a relationship with your organization. So when the pandemic hit, we knew that not only do we need to get something off the ground and moving, but we knew the exact partners that we wanted to work with, and that was Michigan Women Forward. So Maggie and I began the proposal process. We reached out to Carolyn and the team, and we worked together, and as a result, the Michigan Entrepreneur Resilience Fund was born.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think those partnerships are so important, and they're so important to the entrepreneurship ecosystem as we continue to move forward and progress through. So we certainly appreciate the partnership and the opportunity to work with you. In the months between June through September, MWF gave 44 microloans up to $10,000 and 157 grants up to $5,000 to entrepreneurs who have been impacted by COVID-19. The vast majority of those grants were funded by your team at MEDC, and we used your investment as a tool to raise the $1.5 million for the Resilience Fund. Because of your investment at MWF, 98 entrepreneurs received immediate relief for their business, enabling them to purchase essential safety infrastructure to pay for their staff until they were able to reopen. The impact of our partnership stretched across the state and helped business owners who were most vulnerable. Almost 90% of those who received a grant identified as low to moderate income, And at MWF, we are extremely proud that 91% of those who receive grants have been able to stay open either fully or partially. So that's an exciting thing to think about, that we were able to, through our partnership, help so many entrepreneurs. So as you reflect on that and you kind of think back, what are you most proud of about what we accomplished with the Michigan Entrepreneur Resilience Fund?
I think the first thing that really stands out to me is the fact that we're a government agency, and so if you've worked with government agencies before, you know that there's a bit of a lag time when it comes to producing a new program. And so for us, we were able, from inception to approval, we were able to get that in 6 weeks. And then in addition to that, 2 weeks later, we were able to launch the actual fund. So we could not do that without the partnership with Michigan Women Forward. There's no way we would have been able to get through that whole process or convince people internally that we had this dynamic organization that was already doing an incredible job as far as SBA lending and so forth. So your track record really spoke for itself and really helped us move the needle on preparing a program like this that had such an immediate need.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was probably one of the things that stands out to me, is just how quickly MEDC jumped in and stepped up to make this work and make this move forward, because it was such a critical time for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
You know, and as I think back to last summer, you and I, how many conference calls, how many Zoom calls did we sit on as we were reading and thinking through applications and making decisions about which small businesses should receive relief funding? You know, I just think about the stories and the applications and just, you know, the thoughtfulness that went into people trying to help us understand what their needs were. And I think about the impact it had, you know, on me. But I was hoping that today you could share a couple of examples of, you know, some of those stories that really resonated with you.
Yes, so one of my favorite stories is about a tea company out of Detroit called Commodities. And I remember this vividly because when I was going through the application and reading the narrative, I had exclamation points, because the actual owner mentioned that she was in the middle of negotiations with Wayfair to carry her product line. And for me, that was critical in terms of getting these funds and resources to her, because we did not want to be the stumbling block between her business closing their doors and opening an opportunity like a Wayfair to carry her product. So for me, that was a huge testament to the program, because, as you well know, she landed that contract and exponentially grew her sales in 2020 in the midst of a global pandemic. So that speaks volumes to me in terms of an application.
Absolutely, and we're here to talk about resilience. That is an example of resilience. A prime example of resilience. So thank you for sharing that. At MWF, our team learned so much from the process of creating and facilitating the Resilience Fund. As a result of COVID-19 a year later, it is clear to us that cash flow analysis training, financial document preparation, and digital access are imperative issues that we must address with entrepreneurs to help them achieve economic equity and business success. Then, since these were some of the main issues that came up with the applications for the Resilience Fund, what did MEDC learn as a result of COVID-19? Do you think we will approach challenges differently in the future because of what we've learned in this past year?
Absolutely. We at the MEDC learned quite a bit through this process. One of the main takeaways I will start with is that we learned how important the back office support is. So as you know, we were going through those applications, and just as you mentioned, there were financial literacy, digital literacy, and areas where we really felt as an organization that we really needed to step up and make sure that not only are we supplying these entrepreneurs and small businesses with the funding that they need, but we also need to make sure that they have the adequate resources to continue to go forward. Another thing that we learn, once again as a government agency, is that we need to be nimble and we need to be willing to rely on partners who are out in the field doing the very work. And so at the MEDC, I'm proud to say that we launched over 20 COVID response programs, including the Michigan Entrepreneur Resilience Fund. But we could not do that without partners such as Michigan Women Forward, who share our vision of creating equitable access to capital for small businesses and entrepreneurs in disadvantaged areas. And so because you shared our vision and because we knew your track record, we were able to successfully launch this program and really change the game for how we do economic development.
And I think, when you think about that, and what we're gonna hear about later is resilience for the future for entrepreneurs, and that leads right into what our panel will be discussing. Thank you so much, Latasha, for being with us here today and reflecting on the past 16 months with us all. It has certainly been a challenging time for women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of color, but because of their resilience and strength and support of organizations like MEDC and Michigan Women Forward, I am confident that the new normal will include more opportunities for prosperity for those who have been frequently left out of the economy in the past. We're looking forward to continuing our partnership with MEDC and taking on more projects to continue building on the resilience in our ecosystems. Let's give a round of applause for Latasha and MEDC for their unyielding, unwavering support for entrepreneurs. Thank you.
In the past 10 years, I started dreaming about opening a salon that had the capacity to service clients regardless of ethnicity, race, and gender. My vision was to create an environment that was warm and welcoming to all. Setting out to open my business felt like an uphill battle. I was having trouble accessing funding from any bank or other institution. I heard no 23 times. When I applied to Michigan Women's Forward for a loan, I heard my first yes. Carolyn and the entire Michigan Women's Forward team, they believed in me and they understood my passion. I attended their trainings, summits, and webinars where I developed my vision for creme brulee. What I love most about the Michigan Women's Forward team is that they value and respect my resilience and tenacity. They were the reason I didn't give up. Last year, the COVID-19 pandemic made more than a financial impact on my business. It impacted me mentally, physically, and emotionally because I had so many people relying on me and support through creme brulee. I received the Resilience Fund grant from Michigan Women's Forward, which provided support for outstanding operating expenses. I am so very proud that I have been able to create employment opportunities for just under 20 employees from the Metro Detroit and surrounding areas. We are excited to open our new location here in Midtown Detroit the first week of June. I am so grateful to the Michigan Women's Forward team for supporting my dream. I hope that you will come visit me and my team here at Creme Brulee for the most luxurious experience here in Detroit.
Welcome. I'm Jennifer Firestein, Associate State Director for AARP Michigan. I'm also a WOTV4 crew woman. I provide on-air daily tips in West Michigan and also co-host the AARP TV show Real Possibilities. And you might wonder, how does AARP fit with entrepreneurship? And the reality is that many older adults, after they retire, don't want to stay inactive. They want to stay relevant and provide their skills and expertise and give back in a new way. And oftentimes that is through owning a business. And in fact, there are more people over the age of 50 that are entrepreneurs, twice as many as people under the age of 25. And we call these business owners encore entrepreneurs. And when you think of the word encore, You think that that's like the second act, the best to save for last when you go to an encore performance. And that's how it is for encore entrepreneurs as well. They're saving their best act for the end. So we really support encore entrepreneurs and what they do. And we have an online business platform that is the Small Business Resource Center, and you can visit smallbizrc.org to get resources. And we have been a strong supporter of Michigan Women Forward for a very long time because of their work that they do in entrepreneurship. It overlaps with the support that we provide entrepreneurs. So we are delighted to be a continuous supporter of Michigan Women Forward. And I'm thrilled to be here as a panelist today. The stories already have been great, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. So I'm going to hand it over, and if you can each share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you work, and a sentence or two about what you do.
Thank you so much. Well, my name is Whitney Anderson Harrell. I'm the Chief Community Development Officer at MSU Federal Credit Union, and I'm also the president of our foundation, the Desk Drawer Fund, which makes an impact for all of our communities that we serve as an organization.
I'm Laura Sigmund. I'm the principal at Best Practices Consulting Services. We support the small and micro business community through partnerships with organizations like the Michigan Women Forward, the Lansing Economic Area Partnership, and a plethora of them throughout the state of Michigan.
Thank you. My name is Tony Willis. I'm very loud also, so I can do that for Mike. I'm the Chief Equity Development Officer for the Lansing Economic Area Partnership, as Laura mentioned there, as well as the president of Proto Accelerator, which are both our institutions, organizations to help spur economic development in the greater Lansing region. And so we got the pleasure to work with both Laura as a technical assistant and with Whitney with MSU Federal Credit Union as an investor in both those programs. So thank you both.
So I really want this to be a conversation, so just jump in where you want to with the questions. So we'll start with, what does resilience mean to you, and what does it mean for the business sector?
Well, I can kick it off. I think, this last year, resilience has just been a word for all of our businesses. I think we've all had to learn how to be nimble and adapt to change and really become digital and virtual at the flip of a switch. And I think for all of our small businesses out there, we've looked for ways to provide support for them. But I think it's important to know that, for a moment there, we were all in the same boat, just trying to figure out how are we going to adjust and stay relevant through these times. But I think resilience is that key word for all of us.
Thanks, Whitney.
I like to say that resilience is really a relative term. It depends on who you are and where you're at. And as an entrepreneur, it was something extremely potent to me, the reality check, and recognizing that we needed collaborations and partnerships in order to actually sustain. It wasn't because Laura was not great. It was not because our clients didn't love us. It wasn't because the ecosystem all of a sudden had a different demand. It was a pandemic. And so for each of us, we had to understand how to reach the people we serve where they are. And so resilience for me is recognizing that they retool because they're entrepreneurs. It is the spirit of entrepreneurship that allows you to be resilient. It is not by definition how we perform or participate. It is how we activate. So I think resilience is something very different and unique to each individual.
Spot on. I couldn't add too much more than that I believe, humans are nothing but not resilient. With any time that something's thrown at us, we can either adapt and persuade and persevere and move on with it and as best as possible, or not. And the option of not is not something we can do. And so that spirit that Laura mentioned with entrepreneurs, we've seen that tried and true through many of the programs that we've even heard in the previous session, that entrepreneurs have make a pathway, they adjust, they want to continue with their business, the business is your dreams, and that resiliency breeds and sees and seeps through each aspect of their being.
So it's been over a year since the pandemic hit. How are small businesses grappling with the challenges today versus then, and what still are the challenges today?
I would say challenges are still capital are a big challenge across the board. There's been a great number of programs that have come out that have been super beneficial to everybody, but the need is still there and still vast, right? And I think all these things are a lot, the pandemic, didn't just unravel certain things in society, it also took the linen off and showed what some systems that were already in place that were causing some of these systems these symptoms in the first place. And so capital and access to capital and all different types of capital is a major hurdle that a lot of entrepreneurs need, whether it's your traditional lending aspects, the grant programs that we have here, investment capital. It's, we have to be a little bit less risk adverse at this point in time to keep the entrepreneurial engine going, because when we think about the wealth gap in different communities, that really plays a part in the capital that individuals have to start and grow their business. So that's one thing specifically. And then I also say that entrepreneurs have adapted to be more in the digital space, but there's still a lot of technical training that needs to go on to really further cement that relationship with the digital space. And I think partners in the community like MWF are doing a great job to help address that.
I like to say that when we look at the challenges, again, I like to look at the individual, right? Access to capital, for the most part, is a very, very, very huge deficit for certain populations. But we also neglect to pay attention to our systems approach, which still further propagate the challenge of being a successful entrepreneur. We learned that through the PPP. We learned that through the EIDL. We were excited about seeing the Resilience Fund that the Michigan Women Forward was able to promote. We saw it through the Michigan Restart Grant. But to the entrepreneurs who may be viewing this, grants are not your solution, and you should not make that another hurdle. It would be just one more challenge. You need a sustainable business model. That's the reality of where we are. Everything in the ecosystem sounds great when we talk about the number of dollars coming into the community. When we talk about loan opportunities, you must first have a sustainable business model. That's your first challenge. Get past open. Access to capital at Michigan Women Forward and other organizations. Technical assistance is there for you. Do not make the assumption that failure happened because of the pandemic. That's only part of it. We're past that now. Having a sustainable business model is really our next key.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with all of those statements. I think one of the main things that we've seen as an organization with a lot of support that we've had out there for our small businesses is all of the new challenges that are coming out of the pandemic, which for many has been the opportunity to have people working in their small business. And so how do we also, we talked about sustainable businesses and how do you stay sustainable? And then as we're coming back, how do we also have that balance with keeping people on our teams and working to meet them with this new hybrid world and, the balance of new expectations for all of us. So I think there are a lot of things out there that we've really had to figure out a new way of moving forward, which has also been just very interesting to navigate as an organization.
And what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are not sure what they should focus on during the pandemic recovery period?
Laura?
I sort of think, again, it goes back to your business model, but better than that, I use this phrase often and a lot of people think it's gimmicky, but it's true. Your network is your net worth. Connect to the people who can make a major contribution or impact. And I don't mean by dollars, I mean by relationships and connections. That's what you need to really focus on. Listen, as the principal with people on payroll, going through a pandemic, trying to assure them that we weren't going to close their doors, when I really had no idea what the next steps were for myself, I had to dig deeper into my relationships. Having Carolyn and Alexis say, yes, we're still going to support these communities. We're still going to do this work. Having a new relationship with LEAP, saying, yes, we want to get this money down to the street to those real businesses on the retail level who've really been shuttered for a very long time. Having successful networks that are really able to help to stabilize your foundation is really key. So coming out of this it doesn't matter if you're a retailer or if you're a construction trade person. Your network is your net worth. Plug in so that you can have all of the equities necessary and those who can actually sort of like solidify your space.
Laura is the best there, being the principal of her own business and a great business at that as well. We've at least been loving all the support that she's given out to the technical assistants and her team. And to go with the network and net worth portion, I'll also tell small businesses to think larger in that space as well. We saw the pandemic really hurt the retail and the consumer, which is the last part of the pipeline of the most, right? So we have the retail, consumer, then we have wholesale, then we have manufacturing and raw good. And the retail portion hurt the most because consumers were furloughed, lost their job, underemployed and beyond, and then they had the disposable income. So if we can have our businesses can further go up that supply chain and think a little bit larger in the systems they put in place, they can diversify their revenue sources, hopefully. It's not, it's really like you said, Laura, it's the business model, and not everybody can do that, but if we have more people participating up that supply chain, the more different pathways of revenue you have, which makes you more fortified versus turbulence of uncertainty that may come in the economy, whether it be a pandemic or any other, act that could come our way. So thinking larger in your practices, thinking larger how you can grow into up the supply chain, vertical integration, and thinking larger of where your customer bases are at as well. So that's one thing I think we can continue to strive for in the small business economy.
If I could just make one comment, because Tony is touching something that's near and dear to my heart. I'm trying to do a paper on this now, and it's the supply chain diversity. By looking at other people, if you're a cheesecake manufacturer, who else is a cheesecake manufacturer? What are some of the basic goods you're all buying?
Yes.
Right? And
Yep.
when you can buy like that, like what Tony is doing, I think LEAP is going to spear that in Lansing, and we'll have a brand new model to watch and to see how that buying power can really change things. Because when you have to buy as a single source, that cash flow is a little diluted. But when you can buy in bulk, because all of you can share in that, it can really help to stimulate a little bit more revenue into your process, or at least income, because you get to maintain those pieces.
Collective economics works that way. You can you can compete on the retail portion, but be allies on the procurement portion. And those raw goods that come to your business and through scale can bring those costs down. So that's a great way for that. And I know that programs that are out there through MWF and through that our corporate partners like Michigan State Federal Credit Union also support in our community are also a big asset as well. We couldn't do this work without that type of support from institutions and financial institutions like MSUFCU, so really appreciate that space.
Oh, thank you. I think, and that's key, looking out and seeing where are those opportunities, and that really falls back on your network, being able to talk to them and see where are those grants? We don't want to rely on those things, but there's still an opportunity for us to take advantage of some of those loan products, support opportunities, even just different donations through a lot of different organizations. And I think that can be one of the key things that a lot of people just don't know about. And then once we have those conversations, we can make a big difference for our communities.
So great advice. So network is your net worth. Think larger and look for opportunities. It's been well documented that 17% of all businesses and a whopping 41% of African American businesses either partially closed or permanently closed during the first 3 months of the pandemic. So what should businesses be focused on to remain resilient during this economic recovery period?
Very similar to that way. The previous question, I would say businesses, it's really looking at and defining and fine-tuning your new business model post-pandemic. And whether if it's a new service you have to add on, if there's ways you have to cut costs to make it more efficient, to make sure the bottom line is being met, those are some of the key areas. Is to take time and study your business, your operational factors within your business, and gear those towards where it be as most profitable as you can in this current. That's where I see that a lot of businesses should be focusing on moving forward.
Go ahead.
I think there's a wealth of opportunity in the ecosystem, but I really think that we should probably bridge the gap between those who are practicing and those who are practiced. I think that's a really great bridge that we could probably connect, and that would help them sort of like figure out what they need to. We can say some generic things from here, but I don't know where you are in that chain of events. I don't know where you are. Are you at the front of the train, the middle of the train, or at the very rear? Having practicing participants connect with those who are real polished, who've seen and weathered the storm, is a great connection. It goes back to your network, but it also goes to bridging the gap. I think they need to focus on who's been here, how did they get around it, what can I implement that they did very well so that I can actually, maybe, not every business model is the same, but there's some practices that can be employed, that can be, adopted into your own space. And I also think that you have to have a better banking relationship. That is very, very key and very critical. So having an organization that understands this footprint, if you're in the Lansing market or whatever market you're in, make sure you have a solid banking relationship. That's necessary because they have tools or products or incentives under LMI and all these other things that might actually support you. You have to think strategically like the CEO. You can't just be the technician. You have to elevate the standard.
I think one of the important things to do is look back over this last year and what did we learn? I think moving forward, we have to figure out, maybe there was something in this virtual reality that we learned that we will continue to use moving forward. And what does that look like? From our financial education perspective, we've taken everything online and we've seen engagement go through the roof. So maybe it's also taking the time to really think about, there may be a few ways that we were forced into doing things, but now I think we could capitalize on some of those opportunities as well. I think, there are definitely lots of products and services that are out there. We have our Back to Business loan, which is a loan that provides opportunity at a low interest rate for businesses and helping them work through some of these things. But I think we've all learned a lot, positive and negative, and there are some opportunities, though, for us to continue to grow and expand in ways that maybe we never thought about before.
Anything from you, Tony?
No, my point follows very closely with both Laura and Whitney in that space.
So stories of resilience are really the heart of what you do and Michigan Women Forward does. So can each of you share a story of resilience demonstrated by an entrepreneur, maybe a minority-owned entrepreneur business or a woman-owned business, of these business owners who really fought through the obstacles, really pushed through, and maybe even got their capital during the pandemic?
Yeah, I'll touch one, actually do a personal one here. I do my wife. So yes, this is fraught of danger in this space here. So she's an entrepreneur. Michigan Premier Events is her company. She's been in existence for the last 4 or 5 years now. And so it's the event planning, management, and program company for corporations, nonprofits, and municipalities. And so come 2020, pandemic starts, and the first thing that gets closed down, anything where people get to gather. And the event industry takes the biggest shutter possible. Then right after that, it's retail, specifically with the food and goods service. And so, I saw it in her eyes. It was like, oh wow, like this is happening, and where can I go to pivot? How can I, everything starts canceling, contracts are being postponed or paused later on to see. And we never knew the pandemic would last 15 months or beyond, right? We thought it would be a minor shutdown or a slight inconvenience, not over a year in time, right? Which is, I guess, still slight in the grand scheme of things, but, the here and now. But my wife showed that resilience, tenacity, and forethought to learn and develop that, hey, the virtual space. She was well accustomed to Zoom, to Hopin, to other programs ahead of time to actually do the virtual space for events and then managing programs and partners in that space. Then comes the broadcasting. We saw people get more familiar with StreamYard and other programs to help broadcast their events on social media to actually have it be interactive, get a larger audience. Since you can't get that larger audience in your venue anymore, I had to get it out to the people in the public. And then working with other news channels, because now we have a more captive audience, both on whether your smartphone or your laptop or watching TV, because we were at home now, you can actually post these events on a larger media, because media is looking for that attention too. So actually to stack those levels of engagement. So that was, beyond that, coming towards the end part was the hybrid space of how can we have people actually interact both when they're physically and virtual in that space. So my wife has shown a great level of growth and development and just overall the ability to be like an alchemist to make things out of these these moving parts and to make a thriving business. It was a great, it was a tough year, but she did well. She was able to come out strong in 2020. Wasn't the growth that she wanted, but it wasn't a reduction. It was pretty much a parallel to 2019.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Laura, do you have a story?
Sure. So there's a company, Love and Touch Learning Center, and it's one of the MWF's clients. So when we designed the business plan more than a year and a half ago, they were able to execute it this year during the pandemic. They really thought that they would be able to garner enough heads to actually cover their overhead. And to the business about 6 weeks in, that wasn't the case. And she started to have, she was hyperventilating. Oh my God, I've got this loan, this debt is coming and all the rest. Resilience. We decided, let's change our strategy. Don't just market to the zip code 48221. Let us now find exclusively those who are considered essential workers. Let's identify exclusively the essential workers. Let's find every hospital, police station, any and every civil service that has to go to work every single day. And if we can just convert several of them every week, we'll get your head count to where it needs to be. Your destination very close to where they work or where they live. And with that concentrated effort, she is a sustained business, right? So who knows when everything lifts, if they go back to letting things happen differently. But if she can continue to maintain that customer service, she'll stay alive. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, great. And Whitney, how about you?
Yes, the organization that we worked closely with was Hilltop Yoga. They had an opportunity, and when we're talking about being nimble, when they switched over to virtual, they were able to stay virtual and then have some expansion into the Chicago area. But I think one of the things that so many of us has learned is like, how do we do that? And there are lots of businesses out there. I think it's important to share those best practices to figure out, but that's definitely one of the winning stories. They took advantage of our Back to Business loan and they were able to stay virtual, and now they're expanding. So.
All right. Well, we know it's been a tough year, and stories like these give us hope and remind us that why organizations like LEAP and MSU Federal Credit Union and Best Practices Consulting, and of course Michigan Women Forward, do what they do and give back to our communities and our economy. So thank you all for being so thoughtful with your responses. And before we wrap up and Carolyn comes back to the stage, we have one more story of resilience that we want to share with you. This is the story of Kendra Jackson, owner of Kay's Precious Care Learning Center right here in Lansing. We hope you're inspired.
Hi, this is Kendra. I am the CEO and the owner of Kay's Precious Care Learning Center on South Cedar Street in Lansing, Michigan. Here we have a preschool classroom that is from 3.5 years old to 5 years old until they go into kindergarten. And then we have a toddler program that is affiliated in partnership with Early Head Start. And there's 2 teachers in there. And then we have an infant classroom that has 8 children, and that's also Early Head Start. We are a family business. I have all of my children enrolled and working. I have my grandchildren here, all of them so far. So we believe in education and the extension of the family. We try to help parents raise their children, and we give parents a sense of relaxation, knowing that when the children come here, they're going to eat well, they're going to play well, they're safe, and that we have educated teachers to help with their process. MWF has helped me years ago, first starting with my business plan. I found out that there was funding at that time. So when I applied for the initial funding, I was granted the funding, and then therefore I was able to start my project. The funds from MWF was able to help with the construction inside the building, also to help with purchasing the mandatory equipment for children on a day-to-day basis. We opened in September 2019. Pandemic hit March 2020. So at that time we were like, oh no. But staff was able to relax, but I did not. I went to work harder. I brought home my office equipment, and I was working in my home been coming up with COVID release plans and distance learnings for the kids, and still having parent connections with parents and some trainings for the staff. So it seemed like I was working harder at that time to stay open. In 10 years, I want to have franchised at least 15 facilities somewhere in the United States. I want to hand over my businesses to my children and to my grandchildren and make sure that they are set for life. I want to thank MWF so very much for supporting me so that I can fulfill not only my dreams, but the ambitions of my family. I want to thank you.
Inspiring hour. It went by so fast. I want to say one more thank you to everybody who participated in this today, to Whitney, Laura, and Tony. What great wisdom you shared with us. It's good to know that you're out there, that we can count on you, we can come back to you for anything we need. Thank you, Jennifer, for doing such a fantastic job of facilitating that. Thank you to Alexis and Latasha for sharing your enthusiasm about this and letting us know what kind of help is out there. I'm inspired, and I hope you are too, knowing that the future is going to be very bright for all of us. A big thank you to everyone out there watching today. You started your day with us, and the rest of it should let you know that you actually have help waiting for you wherever you need it. Don't let this energy stop when you move on to the next thing that you have to do today. Let's all commit to continuing to support women entrepreneurs, to support entrepreneurs of color as we get back to this new normal life. If you'd like to get involved with Michigan Women Forward as a funder, just call me. I'd be happy to come talk to you. Our contact information is listed below on the screen and is posted in the chat box. If you'd like to hear more about what we're doing in your community, follow us on social media. And finally, and most importantly, to all of you entrepreneurs that are watching out there, I want you to know that we see you. We see how hard you're working. We see how hard you're working to make it every single day, and we want to know what we can do to help. You've held on through this pandemic, and I'm here to tell you there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we're in that tunnel with you. We're behind you, we're beside you, and we're out there in front of you, pulling you through it. We want to be here to help you with your story of resilience. Michigan Women Forward is here. We're here for you, and we want you to take our resources and utilize them in your business. If you need business support, go online, miwf.org, and check out one of our webinars and training programs. They're almost always free or at very low cost. If you need capital, check out our microloan options or get to know Alexis very well, A. Dishman at miwf.org. You can reach out to her. And if you're fully vaccinated, just reach out to me at ccasson at miwf.org, and I'll show up at your business to help you in any way you need help. And I'll give you a hug as well, because I don't know, that's what has helped me actually get to see people for the first time in a very, very long time. So MWF is here with open arms, ready to support you. So just let us know what we can do to help you. Thank you for tuning in this morning, and have a wonderful Wednesday.